Hi, I'm Andrew, the Paisley Robot Guy, and in this video, I'll do the cabling for the TurboPi Advanced Robot from Hiwonder. So here are multiple cables, right? And it's a good thing we labeled these. Okay, so here's the power cable that's connected. Here's there are these two connectors here. This one's to the ultrasonic sensor. This one goes to the line follower. Now the line follower cable is currently not connected, but it is routed underneath here, right? So when it's time to after the batteries go in, then I'll connect it to the sensor and run it over the battery pack, right? So it's routed where it needs to be. But we'll leave it there for now until the batteries come in. Now, this cable, these cables, these are the stepper motor cables. And again, it's a good thing we color coded these. They go into these four headers here, these four headers. So I'm going to take the servo motor cables, right? Here are two of them, two of the servo motor cables. And according to the instructions, the left and right pan tilt servo motor cable goes to port 2. So that would be this one. And according to the instructions, port 2 is actually on that header in the back. But that is in the way of it goes over the motor cables. So we'll do the motor cables first. Okay, so there's this one. So this one is color coded. It is the right front cable. And in this orientation, right, it goes to header M2, which is this one, and it's keyed. So put that on the other side of the standoff. You don't want the cable interfering with the chassis or the top. So that cable is in. The right rear wheel goes into spot M4, which is over here. Now what's nice about these positions is just the top covers them, so if we need to make a change later, it's not too difficult to make the change. So that goes there. And now the other two motor cables. So here's one. This is the left rear wheel. So the left rear wheel will go to we'll go to M1. Sorry. So this will go to M1, and the left front wheel will go. Yeah, the left front wheel goes to M1. Sorry. And the left rear wheel goes to M3. So M1 is here. So that is that connector. Put that in. And then M3, which is where the left rear wheel goes. I'm going to put this under the power cable. Will go here. So that'll go there. So those are the mecanum wheels are connected. So the next thing to do is to install the servo motor cables. These go over the other cables. But again, we want to put these in between these posts because the cover will go on top of these posts. Okay, so according to the instructions, the left and right, this one, pan tilt servo motor, goes into slot number 2 of these 4 headers, so these 4 pins. And this will be done with the yellow cable up So we'll put, whoops, these are a little tricky, this one here, and then the tilt servo cable will go here with the yellow cable up. So that will go in there. And now the next step is to manage our cables with zip ties. Okay, so the mechanical wheel cables, they seem to be managed, right? They're there, they're nice, they're neat. But these servo cables do not seem to be managed. So I'm going to rotate this around and I'll grab a couple of zip ties. So here's some zip ties. All right. Some people would use Velcro to go around their cables so that if they needed to move them later, they could do that. But before we put the cover on, I'd like to manage these cables. So I have these cables. I'm going to loop them around in this fashion, right? So it may be difficult to see, but they loop around. They're not as much of a mess. So I'll loop these around, and I'll take a zip tie. And these are not toys. Be very careful with them. They go in one direction, and you can't get them out unless you cut them off. So there is an orientation. I put that wrong. And now it's in the correct orientation. And you might be able to hear it, but I'll make a zipping sound. Zip. See? Got that part of it zipped. Look like this part of the bundle could use a good zip as well. So get this side of the bundle. And put that in there and zip. Okay, so it looks like my bundle zipped. Now I have with me a pair of wire cutters. Scissors probably won't do this, but I'm going to move this around so you can see these are very long zip ties. So I'm going to take this one and cut it. Scissors might do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'd use something more substantial like a pair of wire cutters. Okay, so those cables are well managed. And we'll put the final piece on, which is the top. Now there's an orientation here. Maybe somewhat difficult to see, but this arrow here points to the front of the robot. So I'm going to put this on top. In this fashion. Now remember, you may need to adjust these rear standoffs if the spacing is not right, but it seems to be appropriately lining up. So I'll grab my M4x8 screws. The M4x8 screws. As soon as I can locate them. Could be better organized here. Here are my M4x8 screws. I'll get 2 of them, or excuse me, 4 of them. 1 for each of the 4 holes. There's 4 of them. So I'll get this one here and get this started. Nice big screw. These are a little bit more forgiving to deal with than the smaller ones that I've dealt with in the other videos. These seem a little less likely to fall out of my hands or get lost, for that matter. Put that one in there, and 1 more screw. Put this one in here. I'll torque this one down. Torque this one down. Torque this one down. And torque this one down. Okay, so that's the majority of the mechanical assembly, right? The next thing to do is to charge the batteries and power on the robot, and then log into it and start playing around with its software. So I'll put that here for now, and we'll be back later with charging the batteries and turning it on. Hi, I actually made a mistake. We're not quite ready to move on to the next video. So something I forgot to do was to install this cable. This is the HD camera cable. It has a USB male A connector on this end and a 4-pin keyed connector on this other end that plugs into the camera. So while it's here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the robot in this orientation. I'm going to take the cable and I'm going to push it through here. Be very mindful not to break something else. Push it through here, connect it to the Raspberry Pi USB connector, put the cable through here. Oops. Be mindful not to torque that front part too much. And then carefully rotate it. Be careful not to torque that. Put the keyed connector into the front of the camera in this fashion. And now we're ready to move on to the next video. My mistake. I apologize. Hi, I'm Andrew, the Paisley Robot Guy. And if you like what you saw in that video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. I'd very much appreciate it. Thanks.